Yesterday, I put a poll out on my Instagram story asking if anyone had any questions that they wanted to ask me, and I got quite a few really interesting questions. So today, I just thought I'd make a video and answer them all. So let's just jump right into it. So the first question is, what have you always found hard when it comes to photography? I think the thing that I found hardest is sticking to one specific style. I like to experiment a lot with my work, and I do think that is great and I do think that is healthy. However, if you look at like the top level photographers, they all have their own style. Their work is instantly recognizable, where I feel like a lot of my work, like some of it's really experimental, some of it's quite traditional, some of it's documentary style, and I really struggle with that. Like, one part of me tells me that, you know, you just need to experiment, and another part of me says that, come on, you've been doing this for like over 10 years now, you should really have your own style. So that is something that I battle with constantly, and that is something that's always kind of playing around in my head. At some point in my life, I will niche down and pick a style, but for now, it's definitely something that I struggle with. What photographers inspire you from when you first started up until now? So I think the first photo that I ever really remember being inspired by was by a photographer called Jess Baumung. I hope I've pronounced that name correctly. They put a photo on their website of Alexis on fire. It was taken from the position of maybe like where the drum kit was, and the front man, I think it was Dallas, or it might have been the other guy, was at the front of the stage, and then it just had this huge crowd in the background. I don't know what it was about that photo. I'd never really seen anything like that before. Like from the band's perspective, I'd always been going to gigs, and I loved going to gigs. But seeing a photo from that perspective, I really wanted to be up on stage with the band, shooting bands. So that was what initially got me into doing like gig photography. I've always been a fan of Ryan Muirhead, or Muirhead. I'm not good at pronouncing names, but I'll put the name on screen. He does some really beautiful portrait photography, and he also did a series on Iceland, which inspired me to go to Iceland and kind of like follow in his footsteps. I went to all of the kind of same locations that he went to, which kind of sounds a bit lame now, but it was a really like life-changing journey for me. Obviously my photos weren't as good as his, but it was just really inspiring to see his work, and I'd never seen photos of Iceland before, so that was something that really inspired me. Joe Greer has always been a big inspiration of mine. I absolutely love the portraits that he takes of his wife, Madison, and a lot of his travel work, especially like around India and stuff like that. He also shoots a lot of stuff on iPhone, and I think one of the most inspirational things about him is the fact that he can get amazing work just from an iPhone. Like, I think this was like even going back 4 or 5 years when it was like the iPhone 10, which the camera on that was like not great compared to like the newer iPhones. He was getting some amazing photography out of an iPhone 10. And that was something that really inspired me to just kind of think, if he can get these photos with a phone, like, what am I doing? I need to get out there and just see the world, take photos, and just shoot no matter what I'm shooting on. Another huge inspiration for me was my college lecturer, Phil Rodriguez. He used to show me loads of weird work, loads of weird photographers and stuff like that. And at the time, I was like, what is all this? Like, this is so strange. But looking back now, it's some of the most creative stuff that I've ever seen, and it's inspired me to just experiment with my work, not have to worry about everything being super clean, shot on the newest, best camera. You know, experimenting is where all the magic happens. Alex Soth is a big inspiration for me. His documentary work is amazing. I love his medium format stuff, and just the way that he captures things, I just think is really beautiful. And finally, there's a lass I follow on Instagram called Mia Novikova. Her Instagram handle is cough_syrup, and her work is so creative. It's inspired me to just experiment and go crazy with my work, use loads of different like layers in Photoshop, and just mess around and see what I can create. When starting out, did you do any free work? Yes, I did, and I would 100% recommend that everyone does that. It's really important to build up your portfolio. When you have reached a point where you think your portfolio is good, definitely start charging for your work. You don't want to get a reputation of being someone who's cheap or someone who works everything for free. People will take advantage of that, so just be sure that when you are confident with your work, you start charging money. How did you get into photography, and what is your personal motivation to photograph? So when I was younger, I think I was maybe about 12, 13 years old, my mum was doing a film photography course like as a night class, and she used to take photos of me and my brother, and I just used to be really intrigued by like the process of her shooting film, and then she would come back and show us the negatives, and she would show us the prints she's made in the darkroom, and I just felt really inspired by that whole process, and I really wanted to try it out for myself. In terms of motivation, I would say there's three things. Firstly, it's a good creative outlet. I can express myself through an art form. Secondly, my memory is not amazing, so if I go out and take photos of a day out, I can then look back on them photos and it helps me to remember like every little detail about that little trip or day out or whatever. And the third thing is I've always had this thing that about when I die, I want to leave like something behind. I would love to leave like a body of work behind, something that people can look back on and, you know, have like a document of my life and the stuff that I did. And I know everyone can do that now with a smartphone. They can take photos of everything that's going on around them. But for me, that's just always been like a goal of mine, and it's always been something that's really motivated me. So that's it, really. Are there any courses or experiences that have really helped you develop your craft? So I did photography at art college. I feel like that was a really nice place for me to kind of learn the basics of photography, being around loads of creatives and stuff like that. Since then, I've spent a lot of time learning on YouTube. YouTubers like Sean Tucker, who does a lot about the philosophical side of photography and how important it is to get meaning across in your work. Tatiana Hopper, who focuses, like her channel's focused on more like researching classic photographers and looking at their bodies of work and finding out lessons that we can learn from them. Her channel's great. And Brady Bissett, he teaches lighting for video, but it's very like easily carried over to photographs. I actually shot a series of photographs recently that was heavily inspired by some of the lighting techniques that he put on his YouTube, and I really love how these photos came out. I would not have taken these photos or attempted lighting setups like this if it wasn't for him. I'm also halfway through Alex Soth's Magnum course. I would definitely recommend that. There's a lot of behind the scenes footage and stuff like that in that course, and overall it's just really great to see how someone like that works and see their process and approach to photography. How do you go about applying to be a photographer at festivals? So this is a question that I get asked a lot on Instagram, and unfortunately it is a lot about who you know rather than what you know. Obviously if you've got like a decent portfolio of gig photography and stuff like that, which I would definitely recommend going out and getting, like, you know, even just shooting gigs for free. The portfolio is maybe like 40% of the importance of it, but 60% of it is honestly just people recommending you. Usually most festivals will have a photo team that they use each year, and if for some reason one of the photographers can't make it that year, the festival will usually ask them, do you know anyone who can, you know, do it instead of you? And that is when people get recommended and they get brought onto the team, and then usually it just works out as whoever's on that team gets asked to do the year after. That's how it's always worked for me. I've done quite a few festivals like that, and yeah, like I say, it's all been word of mouth. So the best thing that you can do is just network with other, especially music photographers. Just make friends with them and hopefully they will recommend you. What's that guitar in the background of your videos, and what came first, music or photos? So it's an Ibanez RGA7. I actually used to play keyboard and synth in a band, but I didn't really think that was very cool. So I started learning how to play rhythm guitar. I did play rhythm guitar in a band for a little bit, and for my 18th birthday I asked for that 7-string guitar. I don't know why I thought that I could play a 7-string guitar. I can jam a couple of songs on it, but it's something I got for my 18th birthday and I think it's really cool. So yeah, that is my lame answer. I'm not really that good at playing guitar. I do, however, still use my keyboards, my drum machines and my synths. I make like acid techno stuff in my free time whenever I get any. In terms of what came first, photography, but only just. It was around about the same time when I was getting into music that I started getting into photography, but maybe photography like a little bit sooner, but I was only just taking photos of my mates at house parties. I really liked photography, but I didn't do photography in terms of like getting paid for it or anything like that. So basically at the same time. What makes you happy? I love this question. So I love taking photos. I would say that shooting festivals and gigs is my favorite thing to do. I love going on hikes. I love hanging out with friends, hanging out with my partner, collecting photo books. And in my days off, I really like playing PlayStation. I played Elden Ring last year. I platinum trophied that, which is like one of the best achievements that I've ever achieved in my life. I was done and I was like, I never want to play games ever again. Right now I'm playing God of War and I play a lot of Fortnite. My partner plays Fortnite, so we can play together, which is cool. What is the best way to explain to someone, no, your phone can't do this? So usually I think people like this, there's no point, like, there's no reasoning with them. If they're of the mindset that they can do better on their phone, let them do better on their phone. And if they can't, they can, you know, come back to you and pay you to do it. I do think though, like, iPhones are underrated. Like, iPhones are really good at taking photos. And I think if you give a really creative person an iPhone, they will still create an amazing body of work. So if someone's saying, oh yeah, my phone can probably do this, they might not be 100% wrong. The phone probably can, unless you're doing something crazy. I don't know. How was working Outbreakfest, and was there any standout moments for you this year? Outbreakfest was the most fun I've ever had while getting paid. It was so sick. It's just like, I just think festivals in general are just amazing. Like, you go away for a weekend and it's just a weekend of people just like forgetting about their lives and just having as much fun as possible. And I think Outbreakfest is like the ultimate version of that. And I honestly just had the sickest weekend. I'd say the standout moments for me, Code Orange. I've wanted to see Code Orange for ages and they did not disappoint. They were sick. Speed and Zulu were also incredible. Scowl were sick. And just the whole festival, man. The whole festival was just, it really is just the sickest place to be. Setup or tips for filming Outbreak or live bands. So for Outbreak Festival, I was creating little shorts like this. So in terms of how I like to shoot, keep the camera moving at all times. Like, you want to kind of put across as much energy as possible. Experiment with different lenses. You know, maybe get some like cheap prisms that you can kind of shoot some stuff through and, you know, see what that looks like. I would say that the most important thing when it comes to shooting gigs and stuff like that, for me, is the fact that you're sharing a photo pit or a stage with probably like 3 to 10 other photographers. So it's really important that your footage stands out from the rest, or your photos stand out from the rest. So I would definitely say just experiment as much as possible. Your work might not be for everyone, but to like 50% of people, your work will stand out so much more than just kind of plain static shots that the, you know, other people in the photo pit are getting. So just experiment as much as possible. What was your first shoot and how did you get into photography? So my first paid shoot was a nightclub called Animals vs Machines. It was a pop punk night and I actually lied and said I was 18 to be able to work it. I wasn't, I was 17. And I think I got paid £20 and I spent the whole £20 on drinks when I was there, because I'd never been in a club before and I was just like, oh, what's going on here? Let's get some drinks, let's get wrecked. So I think the first like month that I worked it, I didn't really make any money because I was just using it as like an excuse to get into nightclubs. But from that, I went on to do like 10 years worth of nightclub work, which was long and eye-opening. But yeah, that was my first shoot. How I got into photography, I feel like I've answered that earlier with the thing about my mum. So yeah. How long did it take you to get a steady stream of work when you first started photography? So I shot for fun, like as a hobby, for maybe 2 years. And then, like I say, I got that job in a nightclub. And from then on, I basically just had work every week because I was working nightclubs every single week. It started off with 1 night a week, and then ultimately it ended up being like 3 or 4 nights a week. I did that for about 10 years. So in terms of like, how long did it take me to get a steady stream of work? I guess 2 years, but I wasn't really looking for paid work. So it's, I don't know, maybe I've got a bit of a weird situation that I got into. I think that if you were starting out and you're like, right, how long should it be before I start getting paid for photography? I would probably say about 6 months is a good kind of, you know, work for free, work for a hobby, work for fun for 6 months, and then start charging. Another thing that's important to note is that I've never advertised. A lot of my work has been word of mouth. And the reason that I say that is because it's really, really, really important for you to network. If you treat your clients right, they will treat you like a friend and they will recommend you to other people. They will kind of get your name out there so that you don't have to do that. I would say that the most important thing is build up a network of just friends, you know, contacts, and that is the thing that will get you work ultimately, not just a portfolio. Although obviously your portfolio does have to be okay. People are still more likely to get an okay photographer if they know them than to hire a really good photographer if they have no idea who they are. That does kind of suck, but that is just how it is. So network over everything. What do you use to transport your X100V? I'm currently using a backpack that I was gifted by a company called Brevite. It's really good. I'm going to do a video on it soon. because I love it. I'll tell you more about that in a future video. Something in nature that you haven't shot yet that you'd love to shoot. There are so many places that I want to visit, but I would say that Arches National Park, off the top of my head, is the place that I probably want to go to the most right now. But there's loads of places, so just love nature, all of it. Favourite film stock? I just usually buy whatever film's cheapest, but Cinestill is really unique, and yeah, Cinestill. So the final question is, what is the most valuable piece of advice you've read or been given? So when I was in school, I left and went to sixth form, and I was doing business studies, and I hated it. I hated everything about it. It wasn't me at all, but certain family members had kind of like pressured me into it, saying, you know, this is what you want to do with your life. You need to do business. You'll get really far. You make loads of money. And I remember one time coming home from sixth form, and I was really upset. And I was saying to my mum, like, this is not what I want to do. And my mum, coming from an artistic background, turned to me and said, it doesn't matter what you do in life, as long as 1, you enjoy it and it makes you happy, and 2, you try your best at it. And that is the most that anyone can ever ask of you. And it was that bit of advice that like made me leave sixth form, and I went to art college and did photography, and I would not be where I was today if it wasn't for me doing that. So ultimately, like, that is the best bit of advice I've ever been given. And I would definitely recommend everyone follows their dreams and follows that bit of advice. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, because I know this video is probably really long, but thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.